Good morning, guys. Welcome to Trade UK live and free. I can't even remember what the name of the show is now. Learn to trade live and free. How's everybody doing this morning? Let's not worry about this chart for now. We'll come back to it. This is for the trade we took yesterday. We took a trade yesterday in the US show, which is on the move. I don't know if anybody took that trade. If you're still in, we can talk about how we're going to manage that later on. And what else do we have? And also, hey, Swee, how you doing, buddy? Did you get in that trade yesterday, Swee? The EBEX trade? Hi, Helen. Yeah, they look weak, Helen. They look weak. I've taken a trade in. I don't know if you can do this. I'm not sure what. I haven't got it on my Fusion account, but on another account, I've taken the trade in the IBEX. For a short, so I've chosen the Spanish market for a shorting opportunity. I still think there's some potential weakness out there in the global equity space. Interesting day in many respects. We got GDP due out later on, and if you think about what's been happening with GDP. And we need to watch out for this news. This is going to be a really interesting announcement. You know, normally we don't want to be trading a news around the news announcements, and we don't really. We're not going to trade before the news announcement. It would be silly, and especially with something like GDP. Let's have a look at when that is due. We seem to have quite a lot on our plate this morning. Where are we at? Here we go. Yeah, this is what we got on today. So let's just check out what we've had so far. Oh, that was a pretty good number, wasn't it? Comparatively speaking, Japanese retail sales year on year was an okay number. Let's just have a look at the graphic there. Massive improvement. No, July. How does July tend to be is the question. Okay, so July 2019 was pretty good there. Okay. Now we need to think about this, you know, seasonally adjusted. Was this number actually any good? That's 2016, so second worst in 5. That's 2015. Maybe not so good actually. January. It looks to me like July is. Yeah, it's a not too bad month. You go back to 2000. Really, we need to go back to probably 2010. 2010. Good, decent print there, decent print there. Not too bad a print there. Decent print there. When you're looking at these are all above. That was the first one that's below in 2014. So we've already had 10, 11, 12, 13. So we've had 4 months. That's it looks like 1 out of 5 is negative. And you know, does it show us too much on the year? You know, in isolation, no, it doesn't. So not hugely, not a massively interesting number, but to a degree, it looks like it doesn't look that great. Yes, the IBEX. Yes, we'll have a look at that in a moment. US GDP is forecast to drop 34.1%. Let's have a look at that. Good morning, Ravinda. Euro up on the dollar by 3.3%. Japanese yen up 2%. 3.3% on the day, is that? Let me check that. Let me just see who the strongest performer is here. Just getting a little freeze up here. So FTSE 100 has just opened up. Let's have a look at the Let's have a look at the FTSE as it opens up on the daily pivots. Nothing's hugely on the move this morning. I think the dollar is quite interesting in the fact that it hasn't really broken down significantly. FTSE looks pretty quiet in many respects. I know this is looking obviously kind of weak here, but the FTSE actually doesn't look. It doesn't look that interesting in many respects. It's likely to come back down to its low here. Now the question really for me is what to do with this IBEX. I'm just going to leave things alone for a moment here. I've got this IBEX trade on to the downside. It looks like it's broken down, but I'm not that keen to put on. Yeah, you see, it hasn't broken down significantly yet, so I've got to leave that one alone for right now. And some of the guys in the room would have got into that last night, I hope. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, Dennis? With the dollar being the strongest, well, yesterday it seems like the Fed were quite happy to continue to be accommodative, and it did push equities higher on the session. After the announcement from the Fed, it pushed equities higher. They're drifting a little bit now. I'm a little bit annoyed because I was going to get myself into this at that point there, which would have given me a lot more room, but it doesn't matter now. The announcement from the Fed, I think if global equities were in a different place, would have been pretty positive and bullish for it. But I think that the issue now becomes the price point of these equities, particularly the S&P, the Dow, and the Nasdaq. Maybe less so the Dow. Let's just check the Dow as well. This is the Dow here. Less so the Dow, but only very, very slightly less so in many respects. But hasn't quite hit that high yet. But you can see all these weekly bars look very negative right across the board. So we've got a weak Dow here. We have got a weak Nasdaq from last week. Actually, 2 weeks in a row of weak Nasdaq. I hated last week's bar. I just didn't think it told me enough. And we continue to wait for some further detail. We're getting pretty close to be able to check at the end of the month. We've got 2 days left. Really, really interesting. Does this end up down here, or does it end up somewhere in the area that we are now? It starts to drop any further. It's going to suggest that August could be quite weak for the Nasdaq. This is the DAX. The DAX looks like it is breaking down. Now, I really like the DAX for a long. There's no way that we can get into this just yet, but I do like this as a potential long trade. Now, I might just have to do one thing here. Let me do one thing here. That is, we don't need that, and I quite like. I'm just got to do one thing, guys. Sorry. You're there. Close that. There we go. Right. So. Equities look a little bit weaker this morning. As I say, I decided on the IBEX, and I think it was just really looking across the board what looked like the weakest of the indices, and to me, it looked to me like it should be the Spanish market. Now I'm just going to do one other thing as well, and that is probably. I should be able just to put this this stop at break even. Now, is anybody else in this? Is anybody else in the IBEX with me, or is it just me that got into this yesterday? Because if anybody else is in it, I'm going to be moving these stops probably a bit tighter now. Decent moves to the downside. It needs to take out this lower level, but if that can take out that lower level, then I should be in pretty good shape. So I'm quite happy just to take a bit of a risk that we don't pop back up again. There we go. Let's pop that down there. I mean, we could get some further volatility. I don't know. There we go. Right. Chloe, you're in with us. You're in, Chloe. You're in.
I am in, Ash. Hello.
How are you doing? So,
yeah, not too bad, thanks.
I was just talking about this. I don't know. Were we talking about the IBEX yesterday in this show, or was it just purely the US show? I was just talking about the.
I think it might have been the US show.
US show. Okay, so you didn't want to try, Lewis. Do you know what, mate? It was one of those because I've never traded the IBEX before either. It's just that I was looking at it now. The reason that I went is the Spanish index on Fusion, Helen. I don't know. I don't have it on my particular one, so so I had to trade it on my other accounts. So it's the it will be the SPA 35 or the IBEX 35 or something like that. So you'll have to tell me whether it's on Fusion. I'm not sure whether it is or not. Have a look. Have a look. Right, I'm just going to fix up one more thing. But it is it's currently going in the right direction. So I'm going to just make sure I can leave it where it is. Where did I go? 72. 71. And then we'll talk about GDP. In fact, was there anything pending for you, Chloe? Did you need to hop in?
Nothing pressing, Ash.
Great. Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about this GDP then number. Did you? I mean, obviously you've got much more pressing things with the little one on the way. So I don't expect you to kind of be in front of the screens quite as much as normal, or certainly as much as I am anyway, because the amount I'm in front of it probably isn't normal.
I don't think anyone's in front of
the but did you hear the Fed yesterday?
No, I didn't.
Oh well, I mean, it was fairly arbitrary in many respects. They didn't really say a lot, but what I find quite interesting with the Fed yesterday, that they effectively said they were committed to keeping on the repo situation, so the repurchasing of bonds situation, and remaining quite accommodative. And we did get a pop in the first instance on the global markets. In actual fact, the S&P doesn't look too bad this morning. And I know it is coming down, but it's coming from a fairly elevated level. So this one doesn't look as yet. It's in quite the same trouble. The FTSE looks like it may well be reaching some sort of trouble now. We might get a genuine breakdown of some of these equities now. But the interesting thing for me is gold and silver, because they are both easing to the downside. And I think Helen mentioned the euro as well. Euro coming off. So actually, we're getting some dollar strength out there, which I find a little bit peculiar. Now, what's going on with the Aussie? Aussie also the same. That's coming down. So we're getting some weakness across the board in some of these equities, and we are getting a weak dollar. A stronger dollar, and strong against just about everything that I can find right now. Let me just check silver. Now, I want to get in. I'm desperate, really. I shouldn't really use that term because it suggests I'm going to do something silly, which I'm not. But I am really keen to get into Ethereum, and I can't find. Oh, Ethereum is not on this one, is it? Okay, let's have a look at Ethereum. Ethereum, where are you? Here we go. Ethereum. Let's not look on that short-term time frame. Ethereum needs to come back. Now that one is holding, actually. Interestingly, we're looking at a stronger dollar and weakness across the board, but we are still seeing Ethereum holding its ground there. I'm also seeing Bitcoin a shade weaker as well. So if the dollar can strengthen, for me, the most interesting tradable opportunities come in the cryptos and with the precious metals. I'm not that interested in some of these currencies. I've got to think about why these currencies are utilized and why they are bought. And many reasons that they are bought is because of confidence in an economy. Now, there seems to be a lack of confidence really in most of these economies. So it doesn't suggest that we should be looking too deeply into some of these currencies, in my opinion. I don't know why people would be so interested in the dollar, but it could just be a turnaround play because it was at such elevated levels. But let's have a look at the other really important barometer, which is the VIX. And the VIX has just been lazing out down here, enjoying some sunshine and not going anywhere. So if the global equities are to really move down, I would expect to see this VIX also lower. Now, this was what happened after the pandemic. The VIX just spiked. And then it's just drifted and drifted and drifted and drifted. We had another spike here, which we can find out what that was about later on. But generally speaking, in the last 6 months, no, maybe not as far as that, what we got, March, April, May. In fact, ever since, March to April, May, June, July. So we're getting into the 5 months time. Really, within the last 5 months, the VIX has just been, aside from one spike, just on holiday. And for us to really see some genuine fear out there, I'd expect to see the VIX pop. And if it doesn't pop, that really puts us back into global equities, and it kind of promotes for me a potential buying opportunity for some of these global equities rather than anything else. Now, we want these to come down. That they are too high. FTSE does look weak. I'm not sure if this is a wave rider setup. You might need to tell me that, Chloe. I've got one step down on one of the parameters, but I don't know what the rest of it's doing. But the FTSE's looking weak here. The S&P, we talked about the S&P. Look, the step up on the S&P on the daily, it just looks like a bit of a retracement. But if we look at this on the weekly, potentially some weakness coming in there. FTSE 100 on the weekly, potentially some weakness coming in there. Taking out the monthly pivot, taking out the bar, fairly solid as well. Almost an engulfing bar. I think that's so close considering the elevated level. Classic train tracks reversal, but it almost becomes an engulfing bar as well. So that suggests some weakness in the FTSE. Definitely some weakness suggested in the DAX, and this is the Nikkei, suggesting some weakness. So across the board, we're seeing this this potential weak picture coming in. Nasdaq may hold firm because we got a meeting between the Amazon, Facebook. Who else is it? The FANGs? I'm not sure if it's all the FANGs. But there's a meeting between some of those tech guys today, and I don't know whether that might hold things out a little bit. E35, you see it, brilliant. Okay, dollar strengthens. Cryptos are not on the ATW accounts. Well, that's a bit of a bark, isn't it? Sino. I haven't got them either, mate. So if we're going to trade these cryptos, no, just because they're not on your ATW account, it doesn't mean that we don't necessarily go and potentially look for opportunities. Yes, it means that you're going to have to use your own money for that. So you're going to need to be a bit more comfortable. But I think it's well worth it looking at some of these cryptos. And you speak to Shukri, and he will tell us we're idiots for not considering them, I'm sure. So and I think he's right. And was it you saying yesterday, Chloe, about the crypto space, or was it Ainsley? I had Ainsley in the show yesterday, but I know one of you was.
I can't remember. We did talk about cryptos, Ash, yesterday, but I didn't really offer any pearls of wisdom because the only crypto I've really been into is Bitcoin.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I'm certainly no aficionado. I'm improving as we go, but I've got a long way to go. But what I do think, the S&P was down this morning, and you got out. Okay, well that's great actually. Yeah, Ravinder, I definitely would like to buy Ethereum. I would really like to buy Ethereum. Now, I'm talking on the broader picture here. I'm not talking about buying Ethereum at these particular levels, but I really like Ethereum. I think I was looking at Cardano, not so long ago, and I bought that, but I'm no longer in that particular space. If I'd hodled, which Shukri tells me I need to do, then I would still be in it. I wouldn't have closed that position. And now Ethereum becomes the most attractive to me. Ah, well, there you go. So ATW accounts don't have the smaller crypto pairs and no leverage. Axie has only large cryptos. Very true. Yeah, we got a hodl. Yeah, do you know what? The thing is, no, you can't get Cardano on Axie. You're absolutely right. I can get it on my other broker. The thing is, we're learning to be traders, and it doesn't really matter what our broker that we currently use offers. If we believe in something and we like something and we go and analyze something, then we just got to go and find out where it is on offer. Because we're all part of the ATW team. We're all in the ATW family, but we're also traders in our own right. We're individuals, and you're holding Ethereum with a small loss for the longer term. What can I ask you? What price you got in, Ravinder, or is that not something you want to disclose? You don't have to tell us, but interested to know what price you got in. And I think maybe Ravinder's making the point. Ravinder's bought the physical product. I'm guessing. I think Shukri goes and buys the physical product as well, if I'm not mistaken. So you don't even have to trade this stuff. Yes, we can discuss the euro pound. Absolutely. We don't have to trade this stuff. We can invest in this stuff, in the same way that we would gold or silver. And we're going to go through some of the exchanges for crypto on Tuesday. Shukri's telling us as well. So he's going to give us the ways that we can trade these cryptos, or we can actually invest in cryptocurrencies. But we don't have to just trade what's in front of us. As traders, we've got over 4,000 products in the world to trade, and no broker is going to offer 4,000 products, whether it's Fusion, Axie, or CMC, or any of them. They're not going to offer you every single product which is on offer. CMC actually has a pretty extensive list, but I don't think they've got 4,000. Maybe they do, but you've got lots and lots of products out there, and if we narrow our field down, what's on offer with Fusion account. I get it while you're learning, you want the stabilizers on, but at some point you want to become that butterfly and break out from the cocoon and say, right, I'm ready to now express my opinion on the world with something else that I want to trade. If it's on offer on Fusion, then it takes the risk out of it. I get it, but at some point, if you're really going to be a successful investor or trader, then there's got to be a point where you back yourself and you open your arms to whatever else is out there and what's on offer. I don't know anything about. I know very little about cryptos, but they interest me. So and I think that they are a good space to get into. So that's why I'm looking around at them right now. So on following Tuesday, I'll talk about Jeff farming. Okay, brilliant. Using stablecoin, and Ainsley farming using gold. Okay, running on top of Ethereum. Fantastic. I haven't even mastered Forex pairs. Oh, mate, that's completely different. Yeah, and I get that. If you're in the space, and you know what, it'd be really irresponsible, I think, for me to suggest that you should go and look at something else if you don't feel comfortable doing what you're doing right now. So apologies if it came across that I was saying to you that you should be going looking at all this stuff, because you're right. You shouldn't. You should do what you're comfortable with, and there's enough money to be made in doing what you're doing and with what you're comfortable with and with what Fusion have on offer. I guess I'm just saying that there will be other things that I will look at that won't necessarily be on Fusion. And maybe that's going to be for a conversation for other people. But I would still, you know, listen with interest, because it might over time just kind of spark something in you, and it may even help what you're doing. You know, it might even help out what you're doing. So that's what we're now. Let's just have a look at this euro pound. Yes, interesting. I think with the euro pound, I've liked this one for quite a while for technical reasons, for some downside. Now this is why I like this is why I like it on a technical basis. I think that there is, now we're going to have to bring up a line chart here just to get this a bit cleaner. So this is my line chart, and this is just telling me what the closing price is. And I wish Jeff was here to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is looking like a slingshot. And if it isn't a slingshot, let's just consider what may well be going on here anyway, because what seems to have happened is, yes, I can sign out. I will absolutely do that. Yeah, we'll have a look at that in a moment as well. So what I suspect Jeff would look for here, and if he doesn't, then I'll just tell you how I would read this. The line chart is closing prices and not the spikes and not the wick. So I've got a high here. I've got a closing high here. I've got a closing high above the trend line and then coming down. Now, I suspect if Jeff was trading this on a line chart, or you know, if this is a slingshot, and you guys are much more proficient potentially in the slingshot than I am. Claude, are you quite good on the slingshot?
Not at all, Ash. That's Jeff's forte. I leave.
Yeah,
I leave
yeah,
it to him.
you know, I've been trading with him for over a year and I still don't really get it. Anyway, I think what Jeff would probably look for is something that started to come down and then moved up to this area, and he'd be looking to trade under there. So this is suggesting we have some weakness in the euro pound at this level. Now, if this area gets taken out, we don't even need to worry about it. So what I would want to see on this one, and there's loads of room, you know, even just down to the bottom of the range, there's room. But this range here is broad. So I'd be looking on this one on a weekly chart. I'd be looking to try and get to the bottom, back to the bottom of the range. And if it was to do that and break out, it could be really interesting, because we are looking at the bottom of the range on this one being, you know, down to this level. Maybe there's a level down here. But if it comes through, there's a chance that the euro pound gets back to some kind of level that it was at before Brexit, which is all the way down here. You know, that's where I'd be a lot more comfortable with the euro pound. I don't like seeing it here. It seems a bit odd to me to have such a strong euro versus a pound. You know, we were enjoying holiday trips to Spain and Greece and everything else on a bit of a budget because of the weakness of the euro. And the last few years have just seemed out of kilt, and it just doesn't seem like the right balance. So I would be looking for a weaker euro versus the pound. But we haven't got a driver yet, and that's the issue. And we might not be looking at this driver for a long time. You know, we're looking at this on a weekly chart. So week on week, we may well be hitting this resistance point, but it might take a few months before we really break down. But if we could trade the euro pound to these levels here to start with, and see if it starts to really break down, that's what would make me the most comfortable. Looking at the shorts, I'm not interested in long. Now let's see if there's any setups at all with the euro pound. Where are you? Yeah, possibly actually, possibly. I'll tell you what I see, Lewis, and not to leave people out. But what you do have is a 4-hour signal, a 4-hour downtrending signal on this one, What you don't have is your trigger. I don't like the fact that it's above this daily pivot here. But it does look like we've got a little bit of a signal on the 4 hour to suggest that there could be a trend to the downside, possibly. Now let's just have a look at this trend line in here. Looks pretty good, you know. That looks pretty good. So euro pound, technically speaking, looks like a potential a potential move lower. The big thing on the euro pound is going to be, can it get through here and come back and retest and then move lower? You know, that's on a very short-term time frame and a short-term basis. And the other question is going to be, why are we selling off the euro? So let's have a look at that as well. Let's have a look at that as well. Let's see. Oh, there you go, Chloe, an M30 entry on Chloe's strategy.
Oh, on what currency pair?
Euro pound.
Euro pound. Let me have a look at that.
I'll tell you, if you quickly grab the screen, and then the next thing we're going to deal with is the numbers for Sino. I will have a look for those on Forex Factory for you, mate.
All right, so let's get euro pound up then. Yeah, it's not really for me, this one, euro pound, to be honest with you, because I don't have, on the 30-minute time frame, I haven't got any cyclicity. So basically for the whole day so far and for the end of the day yesterday, price has just been moving sideways on the 30-minute time frame. So there's that, plus the fact that I assume you're looking short, in which case we've got the daily pivot acting as potential support just beneath price as well. So no entry for me on euro pound on my strategy, I'm afraid. There aren't that many lower time frame currency pairs that I am looking at, to be honest with you, on my strategy, on the income creator. The two that do quite interest me are Euro Kiwi and Kiwi Swiss. Now, obviously, these are on the move. So again, it's going to be a case of now having to wait for retracements. The moves on these, and you do tend to find this with the Aussie pairs, the Kiwi pairs, things like that. They tend to move in the early hours. So if I had been awake at around this time here, then obviously I might have been able to catch this move. I wasn't, and therefore I didn't. But there is still benefit to waiting to see if this is going to pull back to a point that I can trade from. Same with Euro Kiwi. Kiwi Swiss and Euro Kiwi, very, very similar in their movement, and often are, because the Swiss tends to be quite similar very often to the Euro. So Euro Kiwi is another one that I'm looking at. In fact, you guys know that I'm looking at Euro Kiwi anyway, because I did say, I think it was last week, I was looking for price to come from this area around the monthly pivot up to that next level of resistance up there. So it's kind of just over halfway there so far. Still looking for long opportunities. We're coming towards the later end of the week. What I'm really looking for on Euro Kiwi is for price to pull back. Now we're about to hit the weekly R2 level, which I don't like to trade past on the lower time frames. So I'm looking for price to pull back, and then I'll be looking for another long opportunity there. Kiwi Swiss, pretty much the same, but obviously the opposite direction, looking for a pullback and then looking for price to continue. The other things I have been looking at are the CAD pairs. because CAD is particularly weak at the moment. So let's just have a look on the daily time frame here. We've broken through a couple of levels of support, and price doesn't look at the moment like it's pulling back at all. So CAD is particularly weak. I'm going to be looking at lower time frame entries to the downside on CAD Swiss. Euro CAD to the upside, I'm looking at CAD yen, not quite so much. CAD yen, if we just look at where that is, I do have a lot of potential support around this area. So for me, I need to wait for that level to break, which could happen. It could absolutely happen. So right now, I'm a little bit cautious of CAD yen, but if that level does break down here, we can just see how price has reacted at that level now. If that level breaks down, and just to show you as well, we've got a strong reaction over here. If that level breaks down, then I'll be looking for shorts on CAD yen. So it's a lot for me about the CAD at the moment on the lower time frames, and then Euro, Kiwi, Kiwi, Swiss. The things that I have been looking at for most of the week, the Aussie pairs, as you've mentioned, Ash, they're coming off at the moment. So obviously,
yeah, and oil.
And oil. Do you know, I haven't even looked at oil this morning.
Yeah, well, just because you mentioned the CAD, just reminded me that I had a quick look at oil this morning, and it was looking pretty bad.
Yeah, and of course the CAD is highly correlated with oil very often. So yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, these Aussie pairs, I'm taking a bit of a breather from. I think they need at least a bigger pullback before they're ready to take off again, if indeed they do. And I can't remember, Ash, whether I mentioned seasonality yesterday. Did I mention seasonality?
In what respect? Sorry.
The seasonality of the Aussie and the Kiwi pairs.
Oh no, you didn't actually. No, let's talk about those.
All right. So the seasonals of Aussie Kiwi. Now I use seasonals as a guide to give me a bias, and I use it as a confirmation often. So I won't just look at a seasonal pattern and press buy or sell, but I will fit it in with my strategy and my technical bias. And what we've got at the moment with the Aussie and the Kiwi pairs is the potential beginning of about a month of a bearish seasonal pattern. So while I have been technically long on both the Aussie pairs and the Kiwi pairs for quite some time, I am prepared now for that to change. If it changes, it won't surprise me. It won't take me by surprise. I'm scaling out of my long positions. I'm being cautious about taking new long positions. And I'm just waiting to see if technically the seasonal pattern plays out, because if I get a technical agreement with the bearish seasonal pattern, then I've got about a month of happy trading to the downside on those two pairs potentially. But it's good. The technicals have to agree. But my point being that if I start to see the lower timeframes aren't really good enough for me on a seasonal basis. What I'm looking for with seasonals is I'm looking for agreement on the daily time frames. So for example, let's just get Aussie dollar up. That's still in an uptrend. Even this most recent high is higher than that previous one, slightly, not much, but slightly. So I'm still in an uptrend here. I've got no technical reason to trade short. But once this starts trending to the downside, if I see a lower high and a lower low, then that will start to agree with the seasonals, and I'm more likely to place short trades, but perhaps on any time frame, than I would otherwise be, given that the seasonals would be agreeing then with short. So it's not happening yet, but I'm just perhaps giving a heads up as to if that does happen, then I'll be happy to trade short on those two.
Sorry. Oh, sorry, Chloe.
Oh, that's all right. No worries. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm looking at for the day. And as I say, you know, it's early in the morning over here. We've still got plenty of movement left in the day. It's just a case of picking a couple of currency pairs to watch. And if they pull back and give me an entry, then I'll take it. If they don't, then tomorrow's a new day. In fact, tomorrow isn't a new day for me. I don't really trade on Fridays, and I can tell you that what I will be doing is standing on a ladder painting my ceiling.
Not in your condition, Chloe.
I will be.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Got to get it done, Ash. Got to get it done. Time is running out.
I suppose you do. Yeah. I suppose you do. Okay, let's just go through some of these questions. So, right, that's the missing part. Okay, so Lewis was missing something on the pound. That's good. Pound CAD price already past entry on the way Rove Rider into late. Okay, we can check that. Shukri, extensive this discussion required. Oh yes, extensive discussion is being required, Helen. The thing is, you know, not to kind of like overly promote the US show, but we have literally been talking about cryptos now for the last month, and there's still so much more to get through. And Shukri has the hour. You know, he pretty much talks us to us for the whole hour on the Tuesday about it. So it is a long discussion, and I suspect it's going to take a lot longer. Gold has decided to straight red candle. Yeah, they all are. Yes, they are dropping pretty aggressively. The FTSE 100 down 1% on the open. I think interestingly, I'm just going to just take back the screen here, Chloe, unless you need it.
No problem.
Okay. We'll talk about this in one moment. That interestingly, when we look across the board here with some of these equities, I think you know the one that seems to have held up the best is the US market. You know, the FTSE 100 has had a really aggressive initial opening 15 minutes. Now it's got to hold under this level by the top of the hour, and it could easily turn around. And I know that this is aggressive, and there is a head and shoulders here, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? When we look around across the board of some of these equities, they're all showing something very, very similar. You know, this one here, left shoulder, head, right shoulder. I'm not sure it's the same with the FTSE actually, but let's just get rid of that. I think you could argue, let's move this out. Argue for a head and shoulders here, but it might be just a bit of a stretch. But definitely when we look at the IBEX, you know, I did think the same thing. I was looking at the IBEX and thinking this is looking fairly similar in as much that we do also have what is starting to look like left shoulder scenario and right shoulder over here, with a head at the top. But I guess you could argue otherwise. But it did start to look like left shoulder there, right shoulder there, and a head there. So that they're all looking sort of like they are breaking down at this particular point, and they do seem to be on their way. But it could turn around. So let's just quickly just talk about some of these numbers, because and just to talk to Sino, you know, we've just been talking about the seasonal aspect of some of these stocks and some of these currencies. Time to go long the dollar. Let's have a look at the dollar as well in a moment. Yeah, it could be SWE. It could be, you know, absolutely. And I think that's something that Shukri mentioned with the expiry of options and expiry of some of the futures. So yes, it could be just a little bit of clearing out. And this is why I wouldn't mind using what we've got so far as a potential buying opportunity. But really, we need to see what the figures are going to be like later. It's possible that we are actually kind of hitting a point. Let's have a look at this. Flash PMIs from Spain. Much weaker. You know, I don't particularly like the Spanish economy, which is why I'm short that one. Economic barometer of Switzerland, not too bad. German unemployment we're going to get in a moment. So German preliminary GDP. Now this is going to be an interesting number to see what's going to go on with that one. And then we get advanced GDP out of the States. Now, this is a really interesting number. Forecast for negative 34%, which makes you wonder how we've had any kind of rally when the forecast is so low. Now, the previous print, why is it 34, minus 34%? How is that possible? How is that possible that they've forecast so low? That must be a mistake, surely. Not since 2000, we are negative 34%. That doesn't look right to me. How's that possible? Now, I would expect a massive beat on that. I don't know where this number is coming. I really don't. I mean, if we consider what makes up GDP and what numbers that we need to you know, take a punt and a guess on what might make up this GDP, then it would be astonishing for us to reach negative 34%. I don't know where that number's come in. I really don't. And you know, -6, I'd get that can't be right. That can't be right. I don't know. I'll have to look further into that. I don't know why they're coming up with that. But let's talk about these Japanese retail sales first. And just as an example, because this is the one that we were looking at for you, Sino. So the first thing that we see is that the actual number was for negative 1.2%, which looks pretty good, right? It's a green number, forecast at -6. Previous was negative 12.5, so the actual being 1.2% looks pretty good on the face of it. You know, one thing we can say is that there's some recovery going on in the retail sales sector for Japan. But what I wanted to see was what's the number normally like in July? Because if the number is normally pretty good, then it puts this into a slightly different perspective. You know, because if the number's normally pretty bad and we get a 1.2% figure, then that would look even better. It look more solid on top of the huge beat from the previous. So I was just looking through to see what's it normally like in July, and we can go back further. But if we just go back to 2010, then and go to July, then we see that the number here pretty good. Looks like a positive print of around about 2.7. In actual fact, the actual print was 3.2 on that one. So 3.2% on 2010. July 2011, 1.1%. July 2012, 0.2%, weakening somewhat. July 2013, 1.6%. So already we're starting to get some pretty good numbers here. July 2014, negative 0.6. So my point right now is that we've done 5 years, and our most recent number, is worse than the July of the first 5 years of the decade. Now, what's happened next time? July 2015, 0.9%. So it's the worst number in 6 now. July 2016, negative 1.4. So there's one slightly worse there. July 2017, 2%. July 2018, 1.8%. July 2019, 0.5%. So in the last 10 years, this month is the worst, bar one. So that's what I was looking at. You know, that's what I was kind of interested in. What's July normally like? And July is normally, according to this, a fairly positive read. It's a fairly positive print. So can we really suggest, after, you know, seeing that July is a fairly positive print, that today's number being green is a positive signal? From this low point, yes, it is. You know, from the current climate, yes, it is. But year on year, no, it's not. It's not particularly good at all. You know, it's the second worst number in 10 So that's why I was looking at and thinking, well, let's get this into perspective. Not just take it as does this show that the Japanese retail sales numbers are growing over the decade or weakening? And they're weakening. So actually, that's a fairly stark warning not to be too bullish, certainly on the Japanese retail sector. And I would do the same with all this stuff. You know, and this is why I look at this advanced GDP. How they've come up with this forecast, I don't know. It seems odd to me. Have you ever seen that, Chloe? That seems weird. How can they be forecasting negative 35? That's got to be a misprint, hasn't it? I mean, negative 35%. I mean, I know the economy's in a bit of trouble, but there's been no other number before this number. And remember, the GDP print is at best a consequential figure, but it's certainly not a leading number. You know, that's not going to lead us into that's telling us where we are. In fact, the consequence is the wrong word. This is telling us where we currently are, not where we are going. And the numbers that have suggested where we are going to lead us to this have been okay. They've not been good, but they've not been negative 34%. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here. If this forecast is genuine, if the market gets somewhere around about negative 5%, does it perceive that to be fairly positive because of such a bad print? Or do we do the same thing as we've done with those retail sales numbers from Japan and suggest that actually year on year, the US economy is shrinking, significantly enough to suggest that we're not really going to be out of the mire for a while.
Does say in the news here, Ash, US GDP set to post biggest decline since World War II.
Wow. Okay.
It just does say GDP likely sank a record 35% in the second quarter after coronavirus ravaged the economy.
Okay. All right. Wow. Where's that on? Is that on Bloomberg?
No, it's on Market Watch.
Okay. In fact, Alexis is there. Alexis, shed some light on this for us. I mean, what's that about? How can that possibly be that number? I don't. I'm a bit more confused about that. The more money printing stocks go up if bad GDP. No, shouldn't be. Mostly a collapse in consumer spending. But has it been that bad? Which typically accounts for the last 2/3 of GDP, as Americans stayed at home, are raising spending on dining out, physical retail. Personal consumption is projected to have plummeted. And oh, really? Okay. Okay. All right. I didn't know that. Okay. So okay. 10% was smaller in the second quarter. Okay. But then it was in the first quarter. Oh, that's still pretty bad though, right? All right. Well, we're watching out for those numbers, but there's certainly an escape from the markets right now as we wait for this GDP number. Now the dollar. We do need to talk about the dollar. Let's talk about the dollar, the euro dollar, because that is our closest thing on Fusion to the dollar index. Well, it's not really collapsing, is it? And this is some of the issue. I'd love to go out and buy some Ethereum. Obviously everybody wants to get into gold. Every man and his dog surely wants to get into gold, and everybody wants to get into silver if they can. But it's not going to be an easy trade to get into because the dollar is so weak, and really we need a much healthier pullback than we are likely to get. This is silver. Looking a bit weak, but is it attractive enough to get into here? Probably not. Maybe the weekly pivot, that's going to move obviously by the time it comes down there. Where's the trend line on this one? So this is a minor trend line. Minor trend line there. Where does that lead us? Wow, it's pretty parabolic, isn't it? Interesting bar on the weekly. Certainly wouldn't be buying silver, you know, coming into Friday. Wouldn't be too interested in that. Possible that people are taking their profits on precious metals to cover their stock losses. Gold again, you know, another parabolic move to the upside, and nothing that we can do about that one. I'd quite like to see what that looks like. Maybe 1860 could be of interest with gold. Yeah, that's probably our line, isn't it? Just along there. Not sure where that leads us down to. Thanks, Lexi. Thank you. Okay, fantastic. Bedtime. Yeah, always want some bedtime reading. Fantastic. Thank you, Lexi. That's amazing. Lexi's just sent me this now. Hopefully. All right, I'm going to read into that later on. US is about to unveil the ugliest GDP report ever recorded. Okay, I'm going to need to get clued up on this. I was not expecting that, so I have to say, I don't know. So you're saying it's about the personal spending. SG GDP strength 45%. I mean, I get that. Don't get me wrong. It's not a surprise to me that we get a low print like that. I just don't know how that number is all of a sudden. I haven't seen that coming, and I'll show you what I mean. And maybe I've missed something. But let's go through some of these numbers from the start of July. In fact, no, let's go from the start of March. What we at? March, April, May. Start of really, we need the start of April, right? Actually, what is this number? Let's go the start of April for now. Right. Non-farm payroll change, not ugly, not good, but not crazy. ISM manufacturing 49.1, not terrible. Final manufacturing 48.1. Okay, that was a bad number. The ISM in April was a hideous number. Fully appreciate that. Unemployment claims poor. Average earnings poor. Non-farm employment. So the employment numbers have been absolutely atrocious, but the employment doesn't necessarily reflect the spending. But I guess it does reflect production, so I understand that part of it, and they have been bad. But you're talking about consumer spending, right? Consumer price index was dropping there. Retail sales. Okay, so this is one of the barometers, or one of the things that we could look for to show, you know, how the spending's going. -5. Now it was terrible. Okay, so actually now we're up to date with this. Look, I mean, look at this. It's terrible in May, but actually June jumped and July has jumped as well. But I'm guessing that's probably because we are now third quarter. So maybe third quarter GDP is looking better. Okay, all right, tell you what, let's just have a quick look up here for one moment. Advanced GDP, let's have a look. There's something here. Oh. Oh, hold on. German unemployment change pretty good. Advanced GDP. Right, changing inflation value, actual rate released quarterly. Okay. All right. Well, I think that. Okay, fine. All right, I get it. Second quarter, pretty ugly. No problem with that. So for me, this still would potentially create a buying opportunity in that case, because when we come into this quarter, this current quarter, I don't think it's that bad. It's as bad as some of those reported figures. So I see the positioning for the second quarter being fairly ugly. I you know, definitely some of those employment numbers pretty bad, but you know, the S&P is actually just about holding firm, isn't it? It hasn't broken down hugely here. Maybe we float around here, sell off for the GDP number, and maybe even sell off into the start of August as well. And we can continue to watch those numbers out. But you know, if that GDP number is slightly better, then you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see us have a little bit of a pop to the upside by the end of today. There's certainly some negativity out there, and there seems to be a bit of clearing out. See the euro pound also starting to get a bit of a clear out as well. One of the questions are we bullish the dollar? Difficult to be bullish the dollar when the stimulus packages seem to be the same, you know, needing to come in. Are we bullish the pound? Still, I don't know why. I'm not quite sure why we'd be bullish the pound. Possibly, if we look at the euro, we could make a case for be weakening, to be bearish the euro. But bullish the pound would probably not be the equation there. You know, bearish euro, bullish pound. I'm not too sure on that right now, but I am seeing some fairly significant weakness on an intraday basis on the pound. Sorry, on the euro versus the pound. Fairly significant. Probably need just a little bit more of a message here to know why we'd want to go short on the euro. But you know, there's some selling pressure up here. Okay, well, I don't really have too much else. I'm going to look more into that. Thanks so much for that, Alexis. I am going to have a look at the Bloomberg Business News on that. Yeah, well, kicking Trump out. Do you know what? This is the interesting thing, isn't it? I was talking to Paul about this last night. I don't think Biden's a strong enough character for Trump to be hyper concerned that he hasn't got some tools to use. It may be an anti-Trump thing that, you know, that might see Trump out, but Biden's he's no Obama. You know, he doesn't have the same kind of charisma just to wipe the floor with Trump. But as things get a bit closer to the election, Trump could start getting a bit worried, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see some further swipes at China. You know, he's back calling it the China disease or China illness the other day in a press conference. So he's ramping that up again. And that might be something that's going to affect equities more than anything. Yeah, the E35 has been good, Helen. Yeah, it's been pretty good. I'm going to stick with that and see what happens with it. But yeah, so far quite happy with that. Right then, so yeah, US show. We'll be discussing all about the GDP. We'll be back on with that. So let's see how we get on with that. Lewis, could be very, very interesting. All equities down. We have seen it. The real big thing about these equities being down, you know, as we get to this GDP, is that yet again we're just at the bottom of the range. You know, and it's so often we've just got down to this particular point and then gone nowhere. That you know, pop back to the upside. That, you know, it's difficult to say whether we're actually going to break down. You know, I don't know whether we're actually going to break down at this point or not, or whether we just hold here and then go higher again. But let's see if we can get just a bit of a clearer picture on it, because really the price down here does become another buying opportunity for many of these stock pickers. Maybe less so with the S&P. Because it could probably still survive a bit more downside. The DAX looks particularly weak, you know, comparatively speaking. But again, well, that has broken down at that point, so yeah, could be a bit problematic for the DAX. Let's have a look at the NASI. Head and shoulders on the NASI. I mean, you know, the Nasdaq does look relatively weak as well. But again, they could just hold on here and give us very, very little. But if you're in a trade, then you've got some. Then we've got some. Is it Shukri? The E35 is your new favorite. Nice. Chandra, no, I didn't take the FTSE. I took the IBEX instead. So I'm short on the IBEX at the minute, but that might pop back up to the upside as well. You know, this is also at a level of support here. So this could easily pop up. It's got a pretty good potential to do that. You know, that's just been the state of play. You know, with it down here, it's got to get through. If it gets through, we're in great shape. But if it doesn't, then it's just, you know, it's another one of those failed opportunities really for us to get a decent move to the downside. So I'm you know, going to watch out for it and see what happens. But this is the one I chose. I chose the IBEX over the FTSE. I like the breakdown here, so it's got a little bit to get through, but it could still come and take me out. But I think it's worth a punt, so I'm going to stick with it for right now and see what happens. Right then, let's wrap it there. Thanks so much, Chloe, for your input. The E35 is the Spanish the IBEX 35 is the Spanish equity market. And I lent towards that. So I mean, I don't know whether it would have made more money. I'll have to see in a moment. But German GDP shrinking. Thank you, Helen. Let's have a look at that very, very briefly before we go. Whew. So that is okay. Interesting. Have to go back over some of these numbers again. Italian monthly employment rate. Let's have a look at this just very, very quickly. Okay, so this was another option. I think Ainsley was mentioning the maybe the Italian equities instead. That was another potential option there. Yeah, I mean, there is a spike, but actually, looking at what had been going on coming into this period, that's not awful. It had got to a pretty good point, but yeah, so the unemployment rate is just creeping up a little bit. The German GDP number is obviously terrible. But let's wait and see what happens later. Going to be an interesting day tomorrow. Interesting day for the rest of it today. I think tomorrow is going to be fascinating to see what happens. Manufacturing PMIs out of China overnight as well. Non-manufacturing PMIs over China actually forecast to be not too bad. So we might be. We might just be looking at an equity market which is just a bit overpriced. You know, I know the GDP number is probably going to come out and be absolutely abysmal, but it might just be a bit overpriced here, and that might be the issue. So we could see some downdraft, but I'm still wondering whether we got a buying opportunity at play, and that's what I will look for. DAX is falling sharply, which we want. As I say, I wouldn't mind picking the DAX up for a long. Not here. I mean, it'd be fantastic if it comes down to 11.8 or 11.9. That'd be brilliant. That looks like the trend line to me with the DAX. So a break, a retest of that particular area, and maybe it sees something significantly lower. I don't know, but I wouldn't mind picking the DAX up at some point. I still think that there's some potential value, maybe even down to 10.5. Definitely down for right now, though. That's the big thing. So if you've got any shorts in the market, hold on and let's see what we can pick up later on. Right, before we go, I'd like to say a poser to Helen. So I'll her the world of Forex and crypto converging. Okay, I'll let you guys just have a quick chat. I didn't quite get that, but we're all done. Thank you so much, as I said, Chloe, for popping in with me this week. Really appreciate
No worries.
it. And Jeff is back next week, and no doubt you'll be popping in
back together.
Yeah, get the team back together. Yeah, it'd be nice to see Jeff. I've got Jeff into the quiz as well, and you know, lot of fun to play with him on that. Did you guys know that you can open a Forex account using Bitcoin as the base capital? So if Bitcoin goes up by 20%, your account value goes up. Oh, that's quite good. Pairs are in the look. I mean, it's clever stuff that Shukri's got going on here. Pairs are in the normal Forex pairs that you see now, and you can trade indices like the S&P, Dow, DAX. Not sure about the IBEX. Well, I wouldn't mind that, Shukri. I really like your angle, mate. I really like your angle, but it's just so interesting, you know, the way that you're looking at this stuff. Jeff is going to be bubbling with excitement, I'm sure, next week for more crypto chat. Okay, mate. Well, let's wrap it up there. Let's wrap it up, Chloe, with you as well. I will see some of you in the US show later on. For the rest of you, I will see you next week with Jeff back by my side, and Chloe will no doubt be popping in at some point later in the future as well. But thank you so much, guys, and thank you so much, Chloe. I'll see you all very soon.
See you guys. Cheers, Ash.